here we are with Mr. Lee Charles, or otherwise known as Underpants Len. And the funny thing is, before we get stuck in with this, normally when I have, say, fighters on, I have their Tapology up, whereas you, I've got your IMDb up, and wow. Wow. How are you today, my friend? How's things?
I'm really good. I'm good, thank you. Bit strange being locked in for the last 8 weeks, but other than that, yeah, it's good. It's good. To be honest, I'm quite grateful for the time off and to be able to reset and get back to plan on getting back to some kind of normality sometime in the future.
Well, that's it as well. How are you finding your time anyway? Now you're off. Are you training still? Are you just switching off? What's your current, day to day
Um,
like?
I've been doing sort of online class. I've got a little martial arts school, which I do as well as the acting and the stunt work. So I've just been doing some little bit of online stuff for them, and I do my own training every day. I go to my dojo and I try to train every day. Do some hit circuits and I do some rounds on the bags and stuff, and I just try and keep myself as motivated as possible. I think it's easy to fall into a negative attitude and think that the world's sort of getting on top of you when really, it's like, when are we ever going to have this opportunity to be able to just chill and do what we want and not have any stress of anyone forcing us to go back to work? So I'm just using it as a positive, and within the way my mindset works anyway, I'm just utilizing the opportunity to spend time with my son and do the things that I wouldn't normally be doing. So watching lots of box sets on telly. So,
But it's almost like school holidays again, isn't it? Like, because everyone else is off as well, the pressure to, like, like you're missing out or whatever really isn't there. So it's a bit more like, of an actual break instead of, that kind of laziness as such. You see what I mean?
yeah, I mean, as I say, for me, it's just sort of, I've been able to do stuff that I sort of normally put off. I've had my best intentions to do it in the past, but it's just finding time, between, going away and filming and doing the stuff that I do, then my family, then my martial arts school. I do little bits of personal training stuff as well. So my diary predominantly is really busy, and it's non-stop. And I like it like that. I like to be busy. I like to be active. Um, so having the opportunity, don't get me wrong. I think the first 2 weeks I had to bar 7 week shops. So I didn't, I think boredom was kicking in. I was like, I need to stop eating. I need to stop eating. I need to stop eating. But once I got used to the whole, I'm quite an antisocial person anyway. I like to keep myself to myself. Don't really go out and stuff. So it was just getting used to that, not having like the options of going to the local gym and work out for 2 hours and sort of meet up with my friends and have a coffee and stuff. But obviously once you get into that routine, and you just sort of, I'm just making the most of a sort of bad situation. But I don't like, obviously, apart from the stuff that's going on with the deaths and stuff. I mean, I'm using it as a positive and just creating an opportunity for me to press reset and just look forward to getting back out there.
Definitely. And one thing you touched on there, saying you like being busy all the time. I mean, it's good that you can still keep that kind of, I don't know, that kind of pace as well with it. But so, I don't know where to even begin with most of this sort of stuff. So let's jump around timelines because it's just easier that way. So, regards of Gangs of London, then,
Yeah.
what was your training like whilst that was going on? When you have these roles, do you manage to train as well, or does that take a back seat? What's your usual routine when it comes to these things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, leading up to that, leading up to the when I went for the audition, I was in really good nick. I was, I tried to train between 3 or 4 times a day, and I mixed my training up between my martial arts training, my jiu-jitsu and stuff, and my kickboxing, my Thai boxing, and also my weights, and obviously getting some kind of cardio in. I find it hard. Like it seems to be, I do more now than what I did when I competed, which is really bizarre. But it depends what the director wants and what the production want from you. When I went for Gangs of London, I was in really good shape. I went for the audition. I knew I was having to strip off. I'd been told beforehand. So I thought, yeah, I'm in good shape. I don't mind stripping off, being in this good shape. So obviously I did the audition, and I did the physical side of the audition in my pants. And then I spoke to the director spoke to me at the end, and he's like, if you do get the role, would you be able to put some weight on? Because we want this guy to look sort of They said like the way a silverback gorilla looks, where they've
Hmm.
got like big shoulders and they've got this big chest, and then they've got like this belly. The whole thing about them looks like you look at they're just monsters, aren't they? You look at them and they're just big. So I was like, oh, I've got to put weight on. So I was like, yeah, of course, it's part and parcel. So for gangs in particular, I put 2 stone on for the role. And I basically just sort of cut my cardio down, increased my weight training so I could sort of have this physical appearance of being really big. And ate loads of carbs. I ate sort of loads of pasta, stuff that bloated you, so pasta, potatoes, and stuff. And I tried to not have anything that would have a detrimental effect for when I finished the filming. So I mean, I think that's for me. That was the key thing, was to try and get back to some kind of normality with my shape as soon as I'd played the role and I'd been then, because I was going straight onto another production like within weeks of being on that. So it was sort of like I had to sort of drop weight as quick as I could before that next role. But in terms of I mean, you've probably seen the episode itself. I mean, at the time that I was filming, when we did that, I think it was like 5 days, and then we had pickups around about 5 days, and then we had pickups at the end of it. I was performing with that intensity for 10 hours a day. So it's yeah, I know. So it was just on me for that time. So you have as well as looking that big and being away, I still had to have that sort of endurance and that cardio to be able to do that, to be able to not fatigue. Don't get me wrong. Every night I went home, I was totally goosed. I was shattered. There was but you just sort of you know that I would my motivation for that particular thing was I was working with Gareth Evans. He's the director of the Raid. The Raid changed martial arts films. It introduced a sort of like new section in the martial arts genre, where you had this just sort of epic brutality, and so for me it was like, I'm working with the director of the Raid, I'm working with the DOP from the Raid, Matt, and the stunt choreographer, Jude Poyer. Jude, I've worked with Jude before. He was the fight choreographer for my fight with Dave Bautista. So I knew the expectations of what was sort of coming, and then you have the expectations from yourself. So I wanted to be sort of ready, because I knew it was going to be mentally draining through the endurance that were there. So yeah, so training wise, during the actual filming, when I wasn't on set, I just slept. So,
Well, there's a few things I really wanted to get there. First question is, did you do any method acting? You walk around the house in your underpants and your wellies. That's the first question. Just get used to it.
I read a lot on psychopaths, and I read a lot, watched a lot of stuff on behavioural patterns from different people on how to sort of, because I didn't want to just go full out lunatic as soon as I started, because it's sort of like I wanted I was told by the director and the direction I was given, we wanted the characters to grow. So as every fight has a story, and it's important that within that sequence you see the character development. So he starts off quite, I wouldn't say normal, because the first time we see him, he's cutting someone up in a bath. But he's coming across as normal,
Quite
so you
composed,
sort of
yeah.
know.
Quite,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a bit unhinged within that moment. And then as the fight goes on, and the guy is sort of like annoying me like a little bit more, that I can't sort of get rid of him. I get angry and angry and angry. So yeah, so I mean, I read a lot on psychopaths and mental behavior anyway and stuff. So it was but it was an interesting character to sort of get into and to play. And I think on set, when I was on set, you sort of can't drop that energy. So because the viewers would be able to see. So in between takes and stuff, I just stayed completely pissed off. So sorry to miss that.
But this is it. You got to find your way of making it work as well. One thing you touched on there was actually really interesting. So there's a combination of things. So there's a few things I'm going to go off on this random tangent now. So obviously the gaining the weight, and this is an interesting thing with the martial arts training. Often it's associated with losing the weight and trying to lean out and trying to be, as compact as possible. Whereas now you're doing all the training, but also all the eating as well. But then also to try and perform to a certain manner. So instead of when you fight, you've got to pace a certain way, you've got to, be strategic. You're almost doing that, but in a different, almost the complete opposite. You're trying to blow your load on set, and then you're trying to, recover it as soon as you can, and then do it again. And also, I don't know, it's an interesting, they're almost contradicting things of the martial arts training and also gaining the weight and trying to be brutish, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got into I got into acting stuff. I mean, I was over in LA with my instructor Benny the Jet or Kides. And Benny's a legend in the kickboxing world. He's a legendary martial artist. I remember we were, the first time I was starting off in Lee Strasberg and I was training over there with him. And it's sort of like we went over and they partnered up, and we were just going through some like screen fighting techniques, and everything that you have ever been learned goes completely out the window. It's like, if you watched a technical sort of fight on screen, the way fighters are trained to fight with the guard and how everything, needs to come at the angles that it comes at. You go to film and everything has to be big, wide, it has to sell. So your old John Wayne punches, your big hooks and stuff. So I mean, at first I found it quite difficult, when you've trained at something for so many years, to then go, hang on, you need to completely do the opposite to what you've been doing before. So I find it quite difficult. I mean, when you're on set and you're there and it's like the character that I played in Gangs, Len. Obviously, he's angry all the time. So you're trying to stay angry and perform and do everything that you're doing, and everything's always about 100%. If you don't give 100%, then it doesn't sell to the audience, and the audience don't buy that character. That's one of the most important things. So your energy levels have always got to be at the height. But when you're doing it for 10 hours a day and you're screaming for 10 hours a day and you're performing and you're giving it everything you got, I mean, it does wipe you out. It takes everything out of you. You end up with, you can start getting headaches. And, imagine shouting for, an hour, lifting people up and having this intensity constantly. You've got to also take that into consideration with the actor as well. We had Shoppe and we had this stunt double men's, and they were in there doing their performances as well. So you've got, and at the same time, everything has to be safe. So with a fight, if you're throwing something, you're not bothered if it lands. With this, if you're throwing something and you've got to make it look like it's going to hit, but then you've got to have that control element as well at the end. I think it adds, a little bit more to it. It can be difficult at times, but it's for me, it's one of the most enjoyable things that I've done.
Now that opens up so many more questions. So, regards to your actual training prior to that, then, so obviously when you're doing your kickboxing, for example, you've got your crisp technique, you're hitting the pad with full whack, all your weight's behind it. How do you then break that kind of habit you've built up over all the years? And then how do you then have the equivalent? Do you have I don't know. So say you get your Muay Thai coach. Do you get a film Muay Thai coach that tells you how to do things all loopy and all fun and make noises and stuff, but also not hit the pad?
No, I think, do you know what? I think a lot of it is sort of like, you can feel a lot of it, if that makes sense. I mean, when I train, I just train hard. I always train hard. I train full out. With the guys that I train down, my jiu-jitsu place and the Thai place to go to with the instructor Paul Sheridan. I give it 100% every time I train. That's the only way I know how to train. And then you just adapt it. You learn to adapt it, and you learn to process it over. You've got to have that. You've got to have that fundament. I mean, I've trained in loads of martial arts. I've trained in kung fu, wushu, taekwondo, karate. Obviously jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, done boxing and stuff. So my martial art background is very very vast. It's a very I've been influenced by a lot of different things, and I've always been into film. I've always understood the science behind film. Growing up watching Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies and stuff, so I understood that certain things needed to be big and stuff. And I think when you're on there, you just you rehearse beforehand and you get used. You can't just go straight on there and go, right, we want you to throw a kick at 100 mile an hour, but then stop it. You need to practice that. You need to rehearse that, and I think that's where the rehearsals come in handy, and the previs and stuff. And we're doing, and it's just with experience. Experience. The more experience that you do, and stuff. And I think a lot of it, especially for fighters, is letting go of your inhibitions as well, because you're not doing it for real. And I think sometimes it can feel a bit, well, it's fake, isn't it? So you can feel a bit like, oh, you know, this wouldn't land, or this wouldn't go in. But it's not. It's not designed for a fight. It's designed for film, and it's completely different. And I think once everyone understands how them systems flow in movies, and you get that understanding that it's not a fight. The stuff that you're doing is not for a fight. It's for a film, and it's to make the viewers go, wow, wow, that's amazing. I think once you understand that and you understand how to bring that concept into film, then it's easier.
It's certainly an art in itself, and that kind of discipline to try and have that showmanship with your, not even just, the WWE kind of thing. Isn't this like that, but like on a much more pristine kind of level and a lot more from all angles kind of thing? And also, one thing I wanted to sort of touch on then, obviously with your martial arts background and everything else, with your competitions then, have you always felt like more of a performer? Do you reckon this is why you've really shone into these kind of roles? Like when you actually go to fight, you see what I mean?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think over the years. I mean, obviously, I started off in karate, and I've competed, in all kinds of styles, the old kumite, semi, light, full contact. I've done boxing, and I think I just, I, ju- yeah, I just like to get in and do it. I always, it's just, I don't get me wrong, you know, you, I wasn't a natural, and I used to think to myself, there's only so many times I can get punched in the face before I actually start punching other people in the face and start getting my own back. And with me, I've just had the sort of never say die attitude towards everything that I've done. So when I got the opportunity to get into film, and I've always been a geek. I've always been a big film geek, and I've grew up on film. I think I was quite lucky growing up in the '80s, because the action genre that we had in the '80s, and you sort of your Van Damme movies and your Jackie Chan movies, and then you had sort of your Stallones and your Arnie's, and you always had this like masculinity, heroic sort of good guy. So I sort of understood how to perform, but it took a lot of, because at first you get on there and you're like, oh my god, there's so many people watching, and when you're doing it specifically, when you're doing sort of like your training and stuff, you just got to let yourself go, and you've just got to imagine that you're in that environment. And I say to everyone, when like you look at, I mean, I've got a 5-year-old son, Malachi. He's my complete world, and I watch him play with his toys. And when you sort of like when you're a kid and you just go into that world
Mm.
where nothing else matters around you. You've just got your toys, or you pretend. And we were out the other day pretending to kill zombies in the woods. Me and him, we had guns and stuff. And it's just about letting them inhibitions go, and sort of and performing and putting yourself there. I think a lot of people find it hard because they feel sort of silly, if that makes sense. To try and let go of the fact that you've got like 80 other people around doing sound and cameras, and people running, and you've got everyone watching you, and then sort of the focus is on you. You've got to. I never consider the other people around. I never bring them into my performance when I'm performing. It's me, it's the actor, and it's the environments that we're in, and what we're creating to make that work. And I think it's hard, it's a skill, but I think once you allow yourself to be free in your mind and put yourself in there. Everything that you watch on the telly and everything that you see, in terms of films and stuff, these performers and these talented actors are all doing the same thing. They isolate themselves from what's actually going on and put themselves in that moment. And I think that's a key thing to do.
Again, there's so much to break down from this. So, a few things I wanted to get into there. Then that kind of free mindset of, okay, I am this character. There isn't the world around me. I am now Len. Like, no more Lee Charles. This is Len. I've got my wellies on. I'm ready for action. There's nothing else going on. Like, it is a really interesting concept there. And who sort of helped you develop that? Was it something you come across yourself? Is it something you did when you were fighting, that you'd play the role of a boxer almost, or you'd play the role of a kickboxer? Or is this something that's come across fairly recently?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. My fighting. I mean, I was lucky. I had the teams that I've fought on all over the world and stuff. I had the fighters like Michael Page on my team. These are the people I was with all the time, and we trained together and stuff. And and I was quite an angry fighter, I would say. I was quite, I was angry. Everyone used to say to me all the time, "You're an absolute nightmare when you fight, but you're the nicest guy that I've met." And it's dead weird. He said, "You go on there and you just go in," and I think you have to, you have that mentality, don't you? Because as soon as you take yourself out of the situation that you're in, you're allowing other things to affect you. So your performance, it affects your performance. It affects everything. You can't go into a fight, or you can't go onto that screen and allow things that are going on in your life to sort of creep into that moment. It's you and that person that stood in front of you. And that, they're one to punch your head, and they're not one to come over and shake your hand at that particular time. It's a game. You've got to play that game, and the game is to win. So I mean, I don't know. I was sort of, I didn't really care when I fought. I'd fight anyone. And I think that, and I don't think I was particularly acting. I think it was just, I just really don't care. I'm not that type of person. I'm not particularly. I don't sound sort of big headed of this, but I'm not particularly phased by anyone. It's just sort of, it is what it is, isn't it? It's just, he's going to hit me, I'm going to get knocked out. I hit him, he gets knocked out. At the end of the day, it's who plays that game better. It's who's tactically better, I mean, the crossover. And to be honest, when I'm on set, if I've got a big fight scene coming up, I do the same thing from a fight scene as what used to do when before a fight. So I go off into the corner. I sort of let out this large roar like a like a lion, and then I compose myself and then go back on. And you just see everyone on set go, "Oh man, what's he doing?" But that's how I used to prepare for a fight, and I think I use the same mindset triggering, if that makes sense. So I'll use that sort of play into and bring that into what I do.
Now that is even more interesting, that, because it's not even so much of playing the role. Then it's, you're embracing the atmosphere, you're embracing the situation. You're not detached from it as such. If you see what I mean, you are, like you said earlier about letting go of your inhibitions with it. You are embracing what is going on. That is a really interesting sort of right way around it. So again, with your influences in like film and martial arts kind of thing, then what was your sort of initial goal then? Like, when you're watching these different sort of films, has it always been the same kind of like martial arts action stuff? Has it been any other kind of genre that's really influenced you as such?
In terms of film, I mean, I just grew up watching everything. I love old black and white movies with Humphrey Bogart and stuff, and I love Leonardo. I grew up watching
Yeah.
Leonardo. Abbott Costello. You got James Cagney, Jimmy Stewart. John Wayne. I grew up watching Western films with my parents and my nan and granddad and stuff. So I had this like large influence of films growing up. I worked in a video shop when I was 13, so we used to get these time coded videos that the owner used to give us and go, take home, watch that, and then let us know what you think of it and come back and stuff. So I used to sort of like review films when I was like 13, working in this video shop. And for me, you know, my initial sort of induction into movies and into martial arts was at the same time, and I was around 5. My nan and granddad had just bought the first VHS video recorder in the whole family. You know, it was on the remote was on a wire. You know, and they got the whole family around this one day, and the 2 films that they hired out that day was The Big Boss, Bruce Lee, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, quality film.
Yeah, so they were the first 2 films. The first film I ever watched on a video cassette was The Big Boss, and I've become obsessed with Bruce Lee. I was sick apparently when we watched it. There's a scene where they all get cut up, and then he comes back to the house, and they're all dead on the floor, and there's like really fake red, the reddest blood you can find, and he falls over. And that triggered my obsession with Bruce Lee and martial arts. And I just, since I think growing up, I've probably watched like every martial art film there's possibly been out there to watch. Action films, thrillers. I'm into all kinds. And then I look at like actors as well, and you look at, my favorite actor of all time is probably Robert De Niro. I think Robert De Niro is just he's incredible. And then you look to like the modern day actors now, the likes DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and you see how they perform in the characters. There's an early role with Brad Pitt in a film called California, where he plays a character called Early, and he's sort of like a psychopath in that. And that was one of his first. I still think to this day it's probably one of his best performances. And I just look at stuff and I just watch. I watch movies for the movie. So there's been a couple of movies that I've sort of like watched, and the first time you watch it as a whole. The next time you watch it for certain performances. So I think one of the main films that I ever watched like for that type of thing was The Deer Hunter. I remember watching The Deer Hunter, and as a movie, it's just like, oh. So you just sat there, and at the end of it, you're just like, oh my god, there's so many things that went on. You got his relationship with Meryl Streep, then you've got the fact that he went to Vietnam. You've got his 2 friends who both go off into, John Savage is this like prisoner of war who gets like broken down and ends up in wheelchairs. Then you got Christopher Walken who ends up going nuts and starts playing Russian roulette. So I remember the first time I watched that as a film, and I just thought to myself, I was like, oh my god, I think I watched it 4 nights consecutively just to sort of understand every character and every bit of the film. But yeah, I've always given 100% to everything that I've ever done, and that includes getting into things, whatever I've gone into as a hobby. And I used to consider watching movies as a hobby. I'd just get in, and I'd really just sort of break down the film and the characters and see their performances, and just and I think you get some performances that come along that are just absolutely mind blowing, like insanely mind blowing. And I think because of the background of it, I love talent, if that makes sense. I love talented people with talent, whether the dancers, whether the singers, whether you got, performers, anyone that's got like talent fascinates me. And I just think, I could sit there and watch like talented people all day. Not like this crap that they have on TV. Reality people, I just, there's that much talent out there, like show it off, let the world see it, and I think it helps. I think when you see talented people and you see people perform and stuff, it makes you grow as a person as well.
I think before we move on from that, it's a good thing you didn't watch Life of Brian, Holy Grail first. It could have been a very different career path. It could be like Eric Idle.
The weirdest thing was we watched The Big Boss, right? And you just got this like one little scene where he falls over in the blood, and all the rest is like all you kung fu stuff. And then you watch like the Holy Grail, and he's getting his arm cut off and his leg cut off, and there's nothing. My mum said, like, I was like to my mum, so I was sick of Bruce Lee, but then you've got this guy, like, obviously,
It's
it's
merely
quite
a flesh
funny. Like,
wound.
I said, but oh, it's me a flesh wound. But you just like, I was like, nothing, nothing. She's like, no, no, no. So yeah, could have had probably a career in comedy. Should have the holy grail of
Flopping around.
being show first with me coconuts. uh,
Oh, okay. That is. I try and compose myself. Okay. So with so she said something there about it was part of a hobby. So your martial arts and your movies sort of really took a starting point from there. That kind of really interest sort of sparked. But with your martial arts, then you've competed to quite a high level, like 6-time kickboxing world champion and stuff. I mean, it's not like it was a passing kind of trend. Then how come you got so engulfed in that then, opposed to the movies as such at that point?
yeah, do you know what? I think a lot of people take like the martial arts up as a hobby. I become completely and utterly obsessed. I studied martial arts from China, Japan. I studied the history. I find that like the martial arts within itself is has so much more to offer people than just kicking and punching and what they see from outside. I think if you look at it, and there's a difference between a martial artist and a fighter as well. I think that needs to be understood as well. Um, and I was quite lucky enough to be able to have done the two, to be able to study the martial arts, to be able to understand it, and I just love everything about it. I love like the whole this whole magical world that it's developed from, like the history that it's come from. You look at, the stuff that went from China into Japan, it like sort of originated with Boda Hama when, you got this guy from India coming to China and passing on these things. So I think, the martial arts, and I think it gives me direction as well, and I try and teach that into all my kids now. And I think that the martial arts sets you up and gives you certain disciplines and certain structure that you can take into every aspect of life, and it can help you develop. The first time you ever throw a jump spin kick, you'd never think, it's like you'd never think it would be possible to be able to do anything like that. And I think when I was younger, we didn't have we had computer games, so they used to take about 4 days to load. Um, or you'd have like two stripes on either side
A pong or whatever.
with a square ball. So we didn't have the luxuries that kids have got nowadays, and we didn't have the accessibility that you've got to sort of like be able to watch stuff online and stuff like that. So you had to go out and you had to physically do everything. And I just learned a never say die attitude from it. It just like for me, it just set me up, and it gave me the martial arts give me the belief that nothing is impossible. In terms of having that like never say die attitude, and and I think in today's society, I think a lot of that's lost. And it comes down to having the ability to be able to get out there and do it. I think, throwing that first jump spin up kick and falling over 1,000 times and 1,000 times more and 1,000 times more, but not giving up until you be able to do it. I think that's a skill within itself, to be able to have that endurance and have that sustainability to be able to continually go. And I've just adapted that attitude to everything that I do.
So, again, those sort of traditional values you get from traditional martial arts, that kind of discipline, determination, that respect, and all that kind of thing. So, obviously, you've done a different variety of martial arts, though. So, what's sort of, I don't know, giving you that need to expand as such? Or is it a case of would you want to be master of a certain few? Is it trying to emulate Bruce Lee in a sense of do ones you knew he did? Or is it, because obviously doing jiu-jitsu as well, like more modern martial arts as well?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what Bruce Lee said? Take what's useful and discard the rest.
Mm.
And I've always, had that believability in it. And it's never about mastering, being able to master anything. For me, it's always been about being a student. It's never, it's about mastering the art of being a student for me. in terms of I never want to stop. I never believe I'll ever know it all. And I never want to get to that point where I do think I know it all. I think because the minute that you do that, you lose the essence of why you started. The whole thing about for me for the martial arts is about discovering who you are. And every martial art that I go into, or every martial art that I've studied and done, I've I've sort of got to a point where I've made this self discovery within myself that not everybody moves the same. Not everybody can perform something the same. You can see someone do a roundhouse kick, and the person next to him will do it. It'll look the same, but it's performed completely different. And I think it's that understanding for me. For me, I like I love the martial arts. I love everything about it. I love the fact that you can fight on the floor, you can fight standing up. I love the fact you can throw kicks, knees, elbows. And it's sort of that development. I love that every martial art comes with its own science and its own sort of structure to how the techniques are thrown and developed. And I just chip away, like a sculptor. I treat it as that way. When a sculptor has clay, he just doesn't stick the clay down in a big lump and go, ta-da, that's it. He just keeps, he chips away at every bit of clay until he's got what he wants. And that's it with the martial arts for me. I take, I go whatever I've gone into, whatever style I've done, and I go in and learn. It's just, do you know what? I think it's just good to continuously develop who you are and to continuously be a student. It's it was just one of them things. I think the martial arts took over my life, and to stay in one discipline for me would have been I wouldn't have been doing justice to who I was.
A few things you've really highlighted there are so like poignant with this. The whole beauty of the thing being an art. Same with you said with your acting as well. The kind of emotions you feel, the honesty, the sort of kind of development side, that the whole mindset of everything. And it's so interesting hearing the similarities in the way you'd sort of describe the two, and the sort of wanting to try different things, wanting to expand, wanting to learn, wanting to be better at it, being prepared to fail, and again that outsider perspective on it, understanding that it's, I don't know, you could show the same thing to different people and they'll see something different, and that kind of open interpretation. It's so interesting. And one thing I really wanted to understand is your real transition point into taking the acting seriously, and how you sort of made that decision to get stuck in.
Yeah, I as I say, I started off with Benny the Jet, and I think it was around about 2005. He gave me a call and sort of said, I'm coming to England. When I was in America, he said, you're now one of my students. You're part of my team, my stunt team and stuff, and I want you to be my UK and Europe ambassador. So I was like, oh, that's a massive, like, for me. I was like, geez, it was bad enough. Like, I only went to his gym to punch a bag. I didn't mean to meet him or nothing. I didn't know that this was going to happen. And it was sort of a journey that, I was just a lad going on holiday, on an extended holiday to the US. I wanted to go to LA because, all the top schools were in and around LA and stuff like that. And I wanted to just train at Benny the Jet's gym. So I went over there just to take a picture outside his gym, going, there's me at Benny the Jet's gym. Ended up going in there, meeting Cody, who worked there. Then I met Sarah's wife. Then I met Benny. Then I ended up in Lee Strasberg. Then when I come back, when I was there, he said, and we finished. It was a phenomenal experience. And then I come back home. I get this phone call, and I'm sitting there, and it comes through, and it's Benny, and he says to me, what are you doing for the next couple of months? We're coming to the UK, and we're making a movie, and I want you to come down and help train one of the actors for the film. So I was like, oh, love to quit my job, because obviously my job wouldn't give me the time off to do it. And I just thought, I need to make this decision for myself as to what I do. I've been handed an opportunity here that, I'm not going to get again. So I did it, and for a couple of years, I did a couple of things with Sensei. Went over to Bulgaria and stuff. Did some bits in the UK. Then I had a part of my life that sort of took over. Married, divorced. So quickly forget about that. And I had a bit of time out, and then it was about 8 years ago, I think, 8 to 9 years ago. A guy called Joey Anzar, who played Desh in Bourne, sent me a message and he said, "Listen," he said, we're making a movie with Scott Adkins, and I want you to. Can you come on board?" So I was like, "Yeah, love to work with Scott. You get a chance to fight Boyka." It's like, of course. I knew Scott before. I was meant to have done a film in 2007 over in Bulgaria, which I never come off for. I was opening my first club then and stuff, and there was a lot of things that were going on in my life. So it never transpired. So getting the opportunity to obviously work with Scott and stuff. So I said, yeah. So it was Green Street 3. We went down. I had a fight scene with Scott. I took a few hits for real because we couldn't sell the shots any other way. So I took a head kick and I got my head stamped on concrete.
That's nice of him.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? It was me. I was me. We had this shot that was being thrown in slow motion, and it just wouldn't look right. So I just, I just said, if it's one shot, then just throw the shot, and we got it, and it looked spectacular. And I think from there, I just caught the attention of a couple of producers that were there that had other projects coming up. They phoned me for other projects. And then it just sort of snowballed. I started to get put in front of people, and then you sort of go, "Oh, I'm quite good at this." I quite like this. I like performing. I like to be in front of people, and then just getting the opportunities to go to auditions and do auditions, and they're really hard. Auditions are really hard, especially if you don't know much about what you're putting yourself into in terms of because if you're not successful, you don't get no feedback, you don't even get a no, you don't get anything, no one gets it. So when and as a fighter, predominantly being a fighter, everything's about ego. So for me, I'm going for auditions and people aren't even getting in touch with me. I'm like, why aren't they getting in touch with me? Have I done something wrong? And then you learn to sort of as time goes on, you learn to adapt. And I used to think, you go to some auditions and I'd sit there and think to myself, "Oh, I'm not good enough. No, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not doing it." So before you go in, you've already defeated yourself. And I'd be like, and I'd come out and I'd be like, why did I do that? Why did I defeat myself? Whereas now I have the thing in my head where I go in and I'm like, I'm here because they want me here. They're here because they want to see me. It's not because of anything else. They want to see me. They think I've got the capabilities. And then the audition can come down to a lot of choices and a lot of different decisions. It might be a look that the director's after for a certain character. You might not fit that look. It can be nothing to do with the actual audition, and it can do with something really minor, like they wanted the characters to be thinner or older or different hair color, or so you never know what vision they've got in your mind. You just go and you just do what you want to do. So taking it from me, from that, it was probably at that point when Joey got in touch with me, and I sort of had the opportunity to be able to perform with Scott and stuff, and I got some really good feedback off Scott, and since then I've worked on 4 movies with Scott, and had the opportunity to fight him 4 times, which was a big honor for me. I hold him. I think he's probably the top Western martial arts superstar in the world in terms of in the action world as a Westerner. So it just went from there, and then it's also like I started getting put in front of other big people, and they would always comment on my performance and stuff. And that we as human beings we feed on encouragement, and we feed on people's responses to how we are. How someone treats you first thing in the morning can give you a totally different outlook to how your day's going to be. If you meet someone in the morning that puts you in a bad mood, and then you're in a bad mood for the rest of the day. So I think getting the feedback from people that I was working with and stuff, it's just sort of helped push me further and further and further. And have more self belief in who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go and the direction I wanted to take. And then you go into sort of like learning, excuse me, learning more things to do with the trade itself. I think it's important that like I did one with martial arts. You do as you act, and you never stop learning. You keep that development going all the time.
Again, there's so much to go into this. um, wow. So, regards of your like, I want to say plan for like a loose sort of term, just sort of a guideline. Did you have someone you wanted to emulate, like a Scott Atkin, for example, or did you have anything else you've had I don't know, like a preference to sort of follow that kind of blueprint for?
Do you know what? I never, well, I'm saying that. I think subconsciously from a kid, I've always wanted to be Bruce Lee, and I know that sounds dead ridiculous.
Got yellow jumpsuit in the
Yeah,
wardrobe.
no, I think in my genre, when the genre, like before me, my parents and stuff. I think growing up in like the 80s and stuff, and Bruce Lee was just he was the daddy, and I think as a kid, saying to myself, I want to be Bruce Lee. All my friends are getting Mongoose BMX bikes. I was getting a black kung fu black kung fu suit with slippers and rubber nunchuckers. That was my childhood. My whole childhood was like I just wanted to be Bruce Lee. I wanted to. I'd walk around the streets doing the noises and and just that was my whole life. So I think probably in my subconscious somewhere, that has always stuck there. The fact that Bruce always wanted to be the best that he wanted to be. And that, whether that was his martial arts, whether that was when he went into acting with his movie career. Obviously, then he started taking on to the director's side when he did Way of the Dragon and stuff. And I think probably that has had a massive, massive impact in my life, like massively. I know it has, and I think more so than I probably give it credit for. And I think in the back of my mind, but it's like although I wanted to sort of like be Bruce Lee as a kid, I think as an adult, I just wanted to be Lee Charles. So I just wanted to be. I wanted to be me, and I wanted to. No, I'm not really bothered about proving people wrong, but I wanted to. I wanted to set goals for myself that were just so realistic that it was like if I said to someone, "So what do you want to do?" Go work in Hollywood. You know what? Do what? You're from Rock Ferry, mate. You're not allowed to do these things. And I think in my head, if I honestly believe, and like I believe, and I try and give this trait to all my students, to all the kids, if you honestly believe that you want to do something, and you set your mind that focused, and you put hard work and determination and you push yourself to do that, then you'll do it, you'll achieve it. The only person, and I say this all the time, the only person that stops you from achieving anything in your life is you. It's not nobody else, it's you. So what? Someone shuts the door on you. So what? Someone goes, no, you can't. You can, people just give up too quick. I'd never give up. You can give me a million no's. My attitude is, for every no that I get, I'm one step closer to someone saying yeah. So keep giving me them no's. Every time, every time I got caught in sparring, and you'd sort of like be sitting down, going, oh my god, it was one step closer to not being caught, and every loss was one step closer to winning. And I've had that attitude with everything of my whole life. I honestly believe that, and I'll say this all the time, we're everybody has circumstance, and everybody has a story, and everybody has like this sort of negative thing where it's always someone else's fault and this and that, and I get it, I do get it, but primarily at the end of the day, the only person that can stop you from failing is you, because the minute you give up on yourself, that's it, it's done, and it's like, but don't just don't. It's like that saying, isn't it? I don't know if you've ever seen like there's a meme, isn't it? There's like two guys digging for gold. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, the meme.
And
Yeah.
like one guy gets one piece of gold and stops and then walks away, where the other guy keeps going and you can see the big treasure of gold. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, why give up when you're like when you're nearly there? Because you'd never know how close you are to achieving what you want to do anyway. So yeah, in terms of, for me, I just have that attitude where I make things that unrealistic in my head that if I fall short, they're still pretty high.
Well, this is it. Was it aim for the? Was it aim for the sun or whatever? Or aim for the moon. If you fall short, you'll be on the stars or something like that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a really inspirational kind of mindset. That kind of persistence over everything else, and that kind of, I don't know. It's an interesting kind of point you've made there, because it's not just the stubbornness of doing it. It's also having the flexibility to adapt to it, and as long as you stay disciplined and stay consistent with the willingness to adapt, that's what's going to get you there. Because a lot of people, you'll find, they just have this mindset of they just keep going as like a macro kind of looping statement, but if you're trying to push a pull door, you can only get so far.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. You know what? I think, and a lot of it's down to character as well,
Mm.
and sort of like who you are as a character, and how, and everyone can change. Everyone can change who they are, but you've got to want to change. I mean, don't get me wrong. The stuff that I've done to get sort of where I am now, I know a lot of people wouldn't do. I know there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't do. I've worked on movies where, or like jobs where, sort of, I haven't been able to afford my own hotel at a thing, and I've slept in a car on a lay-by of a thing, and gone to the service station of a morning and got showered and changed at the service station, and you know, and like, so you're on a production and you're filming, and everything's like hunky dory and everything's great, but you're in this predicament where at the end of it, you're having to go and get yourself a meal deal from Boots and then sleep in a lay-by, and it's sort of like,
Not even Tesco's. God, times are hard.
but it's that it's having that mindset that sort of, I think, you just not you just not to give up on who you are and give up on yourself. And whether that be, and I've always had that when whether I was fighting, whether I was competing, whatever I've ever done. I've had that attitude towards everything, and that comes from my fighting. As I said to you before, and I said it again. As a kid, I wasn't the most talented, but I was the most determined, and I was never give up on anything I did, ever.
Wow. I mean, again, this sort of. Did you mainly get that kind of mindset from your martial arts specifically, or something you've always had in general?
I'd say from my martial arts. So I'd definitely say from my martial arts. I started off with Shotokan karate. I'll tell you this is where my mindset comes from, right? So I started Shotokan karate when I was probably 5 or 6. Okay, during the time that I did martial arts, we didn't do they had this traditional elements that they wouldn't grade certain students to a black belt if they were under a certain age. So when we were kids, you like some of the instructors that I trained with didn't believe in grading, kids to black belts, which is fair enough. Obviously, that's how a tradition was back in them days. But when you were a brown belt, right, for 6 years, right, 6 years, and within them 6 years, you could see students coming in and starting and getting to black belt and then leaving. During that time, you're stuck on this one belt. that installs a certain amount of sort of tenacity that you're gonna get to the end, and you're gonna get you're gonna get to this goal. You know that goal's there, and you can see everyone overtaking you all the time. But I think it built something inside me. Apart from like within the systems that I teach now, I would never have a brown belt again in my life in whatever I teach, because I was stuck on that grade. But it installed this attitude to me, and I think the people that I had around me at the time as well. My Sifu, Master Brian McKinney, through my wushu and my sandor and stuff, and he taught me some karate. He was a friend of my dad's. I had people like Terry O'Neill that were around my dad's. He was one of my dad's friends, and then my old karate instructors like Mick O'Reilly and the Grimmers. So I had this influx of people that sort of, as much as I never give up on myself, they never give up on me.
Well, it's good that you've got that kind of relationship as well. And again, to be stuck on a brown belt that long, I mean, that's painful.
Yeah, it was horrific. It was horrific. But I think you say to kids now, if you do stuff, it builds character. That was probably the biggest character building I've ever done.
Oh, God. Oh, fantastic. Well, Lee, massive, massive thank you for your time. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Lee A. Charles. I'm on Instagram as Mr. Lee A. Charles, and you can find my actors page on Facebook as well, just Lee Charles, and you'll probably see pictures of Len at the moment because he seems to be the most popular guy in town, or unpopular guy in that. Well, I don't know, whatever you
Infamous.
Yeah, most infamous, yeah. And obviously, anyone that watches, anyone that's got Sky Atlantic, you can go on and check out Gangs of London, which is now available. All episodes are available to download, and you'll see my episode on there.
Cool. All those will be in the description. Thank you for listening, guys. And this episode has been sponsored by Mauler MMA. Use code FCMMA20 at checkout on maulermma.com for 20% off on all products.